Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Big Time Nerd. My name is Austin Youngblood, and I am here once again with my brother Cameron Youngblood. Welcome, man.
Hey, thanks.
It's good to have you here. We had to do this one virtually this time. Just sometimes that's the game. You have to do it virtually. But glad you can be here, and I'm honestly pretty stoked to talk about our topic today. I know we've talked about one. Yeah, we talked about AI last week, talking about jukebox AI, what that means for music creation. But since then and now, something even bigger has come out, and that is ChatGPT. And if you haven't heard about it yet, and you listen to this kind of podcast, I don't know if you've been in a coma or like out of the country, but like it's a big deal. Like this is something huge.
It is, yeah, and I don't know if it's hit the mainstream masses yet, but it definitely is big amongst our community. Like,
oh, for sure.
Everyone's been talking about it.
I wouldn't be surprised if pretty soon you start having kids even use it in high school to like generate essays. Actually, my wife came to me a few days ago. She's like, hey, you were talking about this AI thing. I just got an article about it saying how it's going to destroy high school English teachers' careers. And I'm like, whatever. Like, I don't think I would go that far, but
yeah, I don't know. I think because I was talking about it with my wife the other day as well, when we were saying that if there's any time to take full advantage and exploit just any opportunity using ChatGPT, it's right now when less people know about it.
Oh yeah. Although there's 1 million users in less than 5 days when they released it.
Yeah, I mean that's a lot, but there's a lot of people like us, right, that are interested in this type of thing.
I remember you telling me, I can't remember, was it a professor of yours or something? He was generating, maybe it's at Georgia Tech or I can't remember, it was Georgia Tech or BYU, but he was generating children's books using generative AI and also using it to both generate the text and generate images.
He's a guy I follow on LinkedIn, and he did go to BYU. He's not a professor, but he is a data scientist. And yeah, he sells on Amazon published children's books that are completely written by AI.
That's crazy, man. Like, can you just imagine like one day, like this is kind of stuff of sci-fi, like AI could read your kids a bedtime story. Google already kind of has that. Like if I went over, talk to this little guy, I could probably have it tell me a story, like I think Disney actually had a deal with them for a while. If they don't know still, that it'll read out bedtime stories based on, Disney characters and IP and whatever. Like, but imagine if it could like generate it as it goes. I mean, I know
that would be kind of spooky. I mean, we're there, you know what I mean? Like if anybody's played with ChatGPT, we're there right now.
Honestly, as soon as they release an API or someone takes that, it creates a clone of it, or I'm not sure if OpenAI will release the model to the public anytime soon. I think they did with the previous models. But like as soon as they release it and you have access to it to just go out there and play with it, like I can't wait to see the APIs and stuff that people build. But anyway, so today we want to talk a little bit kind of what this means, I think, for our areas of expertise in software development and also like pop culture. Yeah, for real. Kind of how we got here. Because honestly, it feels like a quantum leap, like a crazy quantum leap. I don't think anything quite has really had the same effect, maybe since the smartphone really started to take hold in 2007 with the iPhone. Like people have compared this moment to the iPhone. Yeah.
And I don't know if we can quite compare it to the iPhone. I think before we dive in, I think it is kind of it is a big deal. Like it's a huge deal, but this type of thing isn't super new. Like this type of technology and these even like an AI that's powerful enough to do this type of stuff has been around for a while. I think what's so new about it is its accessibility and its interface. And I guess that's true. Like, I guess we can compare it to the iPhone because all those technologies were there, and it's just that Apple combined all those things into one place that you could access it and the masses could access it. And I think that's the beauty of ChatGPT so far, is that it's not necessarily a new thing. It's just that it's very accessible and people are starting to realize what's possible.
Yeah, it's becoming mainstream. It's getting past the world of just researchers. I just looked at OpenAI's timeline, and I'll pull it up here on the screen. They really started in 2015, and I remember reading somewhere that the first real generative models in AI, first like neural nets, really started coming around 2012. So think about, like, it's been 10 years. In 10 years, we went from like super basic, juvenile kind of generative processing to now 2022. You can have a conversation with the bot, and except for a few key things, it's going to feel very much like talking to a person.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, it's interesting because I feel like the technology, the know-how was there. I think the technology just needed to catch up. I think the processing is the main thing that needed to catch up. And just, I don't know if this type of processing was possible in 2012 when this stuff started happening, like 10 years ago. And if it was possible, I think just how expensive it must have been.
Oh,
it just
man.
would have been totally obscene.
What was it, like the PS3 was still around in 2012? Was that?
Yeah, I guess so. 2012.
Or was it PS4?
Maybe PS3.
Because I remember back in the day, they used to have these, you could build supercomputers. Sony actually opened it up so that researchers, they closed it down eventually because it was too much of a privacy issue. But like they'd let researchers take PS3s and make cluster supercomputers based on PS3s as nodes. And like, so that's like kind of the era of that. And that was like the most affordable, cheap option back in that day to build a supercomputer. And look where we are now.
I know, it's crazy. It really is crazy. That's pretty crazy that it's only been 10 years. But I mean, again, like this type of stuff has been around for a while. And I think because last week when we played around with Jukebox AI, which is built by OpenAI, it's an OpenAI model. So same company that built ChatGPT. But we had to play around with that one in essentially like a kernel-based Python executable. And so it's much different. Like I think this type of thing, like ChatGPT, this kind of generative AI and like these responses, it's been possible for quite a while, and I think people have been doing it for quite a while, but not on this scale and not on this interface. Like it's fast, it's accessible, like everyone can open it up, and that's not to say that in the near future that'll change. Like I'm sure that OpenAI will find a way to monetize this, or some other company will probably start licensing this. Didn't you say that Microsoft already became? Yeah,
that's what I was reading.
Invested I just pulled in OpenAI or something like that.
I just pulled up a quick article. It says the company that created it is not backed by Microsoft, but has a long history of some of Silicon Valley's biggest names. So I think Microsoft is their current big supporter, which makes sense. Honestly, if you remember when we were doing our Jukebox AI, one of the places it would download a bunch of the models from was Azure.
Azure.
Or
yeah,
Azure,
that's right.
Excuse me. And it makes sense. And I think I remember seeing Fireship just put out a really great video. We talked about this, I think, over Discord a few days ago, talking about like what this means. Like, what does this really mean that ChatGPT is now out there? And I think Microsoft is actually trying to integrate a lot of the pieces of AI, other models too at the moment, into their IDEs. Like imagine going into VS Code and like writing out a script and like for JavaScript, or building out your backend in Node or Rust or whatever. And it's like, yeah, that's a good way to do it, but why don't you actually use this? This would be more memory efficient. Or like, hey, like it seems like you're trying to do this. That's going to crash. How about you do this instead? I mean, it's just mind boggling.
Which I think is really cool. And I mean, even now, like if anyone's played around with it, it's got some pretty amazing capabilities. I had a friend that sent me a video, just a screen share of him playing around with ChatGPT, and he put in probably like 200 lines of PHP code and said, fix my code because it wasn't running. And, I mean, if you give 200 lines of PHP code to any human being, they're probably going to freak out, right? Because PHP's garbage and terrible. And
I don't know, man. I know one person. I met someone just the other day that they've been doing PHP code since like the late 90s and they love it. They're one of those people that love WordPress. But anyway, that's a side note. There are some PHP aficionados
another day about PHP and WordPress. But my personal opinion is I'm not a big fan of PHP. But he works a lot in PHP, and he put in a ton of code and it fixed it for him. And then he was able to run it, which was pretty crazy.
And that seems like a niche language these days. At least within our realm of with the tech companies, that's that you only know it if you're just doing WordPress all the time.
That's true. It feels antiquated a little bit, right? Like PHP doesn't feel super relevant.
But the fact that there's enough more modern stuff that you can actually have an AI ingest and then be like, oh yeah, I understand PHP. It's like, holy crap! I wonder if you could throw Fortran code at this. I haven't tried throwing Fortran at it yet.
Oh, I'm sure you could. I mean, I know I saw that.
We'll do that in a minute.
ChatGPT is updated till 2021 or something. Like they used information out there from until 2021, and so I think pretty much anything in the past, it's for the most part, it'll have information on it. I mean, it doesn't have the capability to go out and scrape websites now. It's kind of behind. I'm sure that type of capability will be possible in the future.
I wonder if it's done on purpose, though, because you don't want to... I think it could start getting kind of... I don't know. There's a lot of biases that can come when you start...
When you don't filter the information.
Yeah, and if you can sanitize a model to an extent... I mean, that's a whole other ethics question, too. I don't feel like either of us are truly qualified.
Yeah, no, definitely not. But I think a lot of people are worried about that, and I saw in that Business Insider article that you sent, by the way, just at the very end, it talking about different biases and people worrying about it because AI has been proven to carry biases in the past, right? Because we train it off of information that we have, and I think some of those it probably picks up on biases that we didn't even know existed in society, which is really interesting because it can give a slightly clearer picture into what's going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe it's more of it's like a social commentary in a way.
Yeah, that's true. That's kind of deep. We could get into a whole philosophical discussion on that another time. But
actually, that's like a whole comms theory. That's a whole comms theory subject.
Yeah, for real.
That takes me back.
But I think I forgot kind of where I was going with this, but I think
we're talking about PHP.
And talking about Fireship, and I don't know if anyone hasn't checked out Fireship, his videos on YouTube. Definitely,
he's definitely a go-to.
Yeah, he's an awesome creator on YouTube and very smart guy.
All about web design.
Yeah, web design, web development. But it's pretty amazing the capabilities it has, and it feels very much like it should replace Google or Bing or other search engines. It seems like this is what we've been wanting from a search engine for all this time. And I was talking to someone about this the other day when we were talking about ChatGPT. If you look up something right now on, say, Google, mainly Google, I don't really use Bing, so I can't really speak to Bing. But if you look up something on Google and then you're trying to find information on something. So, for instance, if you ask, how to build or integrate, a headless CMS with, React or something like that, most likely you'll probably see a tutorial or find information that's basically marketing material from a headless CMS. And that's fine, but sometimes you don't want all this information that's just coming at you to try to sell you something, right? It's just I have to filter through 10 different pages that are the top results of these companies that have done search engine optimization marketing so well that now this information is the top thing that pulls up, and I have to search through it to find the stuff that I actually want. It's just it gives you the information directly. And I think that's some necessary innovation that we need in this industry. And you and I both coming from a marketing kind of brand positioning background, it's kind of funny for us to say that, but I'm kind of sick of searching for stuff online and then having to go through 20 different pages just because it's all just marketing junk. It's not anything substantial.
Yeah.
And so I think this will give people what they want directly. I mean, think about searching for a recipe. You search for a recipe, and then when you go to the page, you have to scroll through 5 page lengths of ads or like banner ads or native content before you actually get to the recipe, because it's just like all garbage. It's just like all like a marketing money making thing, which is fine. Like I'm not necessarily like against that, but I'm just saying that this is awesome because like I would probably even pay. I'd pay for a service, right, where it's just like give me exactly what I want right now. Like give me a recipe for this.
Well, imagine too, like, let's go back, step back to like the first example you gave, like how do I integrate a CMS with a headless site? Or no, not headless site, but you know what I'm saying? Like how do I integrate this CMS without having a backend and all? So what if you were able to look up a tutorial how to do that? And let's say it was based with React, and not only does it pull up the information about how to do it, it walks you through step by step saying, okay, I'm actually going to generate a tutorial for you. Like imagine the power of that. You could take some even newer frameworks that don't really have a lot of documentation or they're not user friendly. You could have it walk you through step by step because it would understand it well enough to say, oh, here's a tutorial I just put together. And eventually I think it will get to that level where like imagine the implications for learning. Like, and that's just in the meantime, like what if down the road, I think Fireship talked about this, that we might not even be coding ourselves. We might be writing some kind of pseudocode that goes in. It's like this AI super language that we write pretty much in plain English saying, I want to do this, do that. And we let the machine just build it itself. It picks the right frameworks, or better yet, it could just write up the assembly language. It could find the most efficient way to do it on the bare metal and just run with it. I mean, you could forget about frameworks. You could forget about languages. You could forget about interoperability issues. Like all of it is just solved. And I know we're probably still a little ways away from that. But honestly, I never expected a computer to beat the Turing test while I was still in my 20s. You know?
Yeah.
And we're not quite 100% there, but we're so dang close with GPT. Excuse me. It's pretty cool. Like this is game changing.
And I don't think it'll ever get to the point where it completely replaces what anybody does.
Well, you still have to have systems engineers working on it. I mean, like, I think if anything, it's just going to shift the industry.
Yeah. Well, I think that it will always be necessary. I mean, there's even a lot of that now, right? Where like jobs have changed, and I think some jobs will disappear.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I know there's even stuff in my work now where I still do manually, but I'm like, I know that a Python script or some sort of automation could save me hours upon hours. And so I think there's things that will phase out and things that will disappear, but I think it'll just shift. And yeah, like you said, there might be things that'll shift more around AI and AI driven development, engineering, things like that.
Right. Because, someone has to be there to support it. Someone has to be there to run the back end.
Yeah. And I think it is kind of funny, too, because people get afraid of stuff like this. It's creepy that ChatGPT can write an essay. And
about, like, anything.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it's referencing information that's indexed somehow. You know what I mean? And it's like, and who's the person that's going to write that information initially? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't, and I could be totally wrong. Like, I could look back on this in 10 years and say, like, wow, I was very, very wrong. But I don't see something like a chatbot being the one that's, like, actually going to be writing history. You know what I mean? Like it's pulling information from things, and it's able to synthesize these, like, what seems like a complete thought or it seems like a complete thesis around topics, but that information has to come from somewhere, and often it's something it needs to come from an entity that is sentient. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Like the information or the AI? Yeah. Like the information has to be there to feed the AI, and the AI is only as good as the data that is entered into it. Like, if it's poorly trained on bad input data, then it's going to be absolutely garbage.
Or it's going to be full of dangerous bias, which is
exactly.
Yeah.
And so we still have to, it's like there's still going to be a lot of discussion, a lot of things around what kind of information do we feed it? Like, how do we do that? I do think that it presents some like short-term problems with education, and like you had mentioned, and just like even how we search for answers. Like, are we going to be
are we going to be
for,
Googling
like,
it
or
right?
Yeah. And so that could present problems, like how do we train it, and then to give unbiased results or unbiased answers, and what is an unbiased answer, and then also I would have been guilty in high school of like, oh, I'm stuck on a math problem, I'm just going to feed it to an AI, because at one point in high school we all were like, I don't want to do this, so we Googled it to see if it was done elsewhere. And then when we were in high school, that it wasn't as common, so it was harder to find stuff like that. I know now people can basically find anything on the internet, right? Like learning materials are reused all the time, and so you can probably find most of the stuff that you're working on in high school online already. But we didn't have that privilege, and so it's like,
or it wasn't as easy.
Of it.
It's probably still possible, but it wasn't as easy.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, as a young middle high school student, right, that like didn't really understand or appreciate the value of education and like the education I was receiving, and you probably felt the same way. You probably feel the same way, but it's like, of course, high schoolers are going to find shortcuts, and presents a very easy way to do that. And it's scary too, because I don't know if it's scary, but it's crazy, because if you get it to write an essay, you can't tell that it was written by a computer. Like, if something's translated by Google Translate, like you can tell it's translated by Google Translate, but you can't. That's what's so crazy to everyone about ChatGPT, is that you can't tell that it's written by a computer, which is amazing, actually. It's pretty incredible.
Let's try that, like the 5-paragraph essay. And a little bit, we're going to also mess around with an old legacy kind of chat bot, which is not AI, but just kind of based on decision trees, which is
AI
fun.
When it comes down to
it. It is, but it's a much more rudimentary kind of setup than ChatGPT.
Yeah, and it's something we used to play around with a lot as kids.
So let's do write me a 5-paragraph essay. What do you think, man?
Let's see. What's something that we had to write when we were in middle school? I don't even remember. Maybe Spanish Inquisition. That would have been something, right? In like a history class.
Let's see if I can spell Inquisition.
That's a real thing, right? Spanish Inquisition. That sounds familiar. Okay.
Wow, there it goes. That was fast.
Coming back to me. Yeah, it's pretty crazy how fast it was.
Okay, so Spanish Inquisition was a dark period in Spanish history during which the Spanish monarchy used the power of the church to persecute and torture thousands of people. The Inquisition was started in the late 15th century by King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, who were determined to purify Spain of heretics and non-believers. Yeah, it's doing pretty good. Let's see. During the Inquisition, the Spanish monarchy and the Catholic Church worked together to hunt down anyone who was suspected of heresy. This included Jews, Muslims, and even some Christians who did not adhere to the strict beliefs of the Spanish Church. Those who were accused were often arrested and brought before a panel of inquisitors who would interrogate them and subject them to various forms of torture in order to extract confessions. I mean, this is actually looking pretty good. Let's see.
Yeah,
and it's
I think the
5
craziest
paragraphs.
thing is when you go down to the bottom and it says, overall, the Spanish Inquisition was a tragic and shameful episode in Spanish history. It stands as a reminder of the dangers of religious extremism and the need for tolerance and understanding among different groups. Like, it's very short. It's 2 sentences, so it might not give like you can probably give it clear results where you can say like, yeah, could you make each paragraph have 5 sentences? But it's pretty crazy how it follows the traditional 5-paragraph structure of an essay that we were all taught. I don't know if they're still taught that, but I remember we were taught that. Oh wow, it's doing it.
This is crazy.
Yeah, so we told it, could you make each paragraph have 5 sentences, and it's doing it. So there you go. Like
and so far it's looking good. And you know what? This is the crazy thing, that this is something it'll never grow tired. It'll always add more if you ask it to, except when it just glitches out. I've had that happen. And it's never going to complain. Like, this is truly like for some people, this might be like the best copywriter they could ever hire.
Let's see, did it give 5 paragraphs?
It gave us 3, but you know what? It might be something set up where it cuts off after a certain point.
Yeah, it could be. And I'm sure it'll evolve more, but I mean, it's pretty crazy that it gives us
I think it actually
thoughts.
I think it just shrunk all of this Oh no, it didn't. It added to it. But yeah, that's wild.
Wow.
Maybe we should figure, just for the fun of it. We don't want to make this podcast too long today. I mean, there's so much information out there about ChatGPT. We're just kind of, this is really just our thoughts on it.
Editorial, our opinion on it.
Yeah, but let's play around. Let's compare it to Cleverbot. Let's put together let's use the same question or query on both of these, and then see how it replies. So,
yes, and I guess like some background too for Cleverbot.
Yeah.
It is I think we should say tell me a story. Just like very simple on both of them. Maybe do ChatGPT first. But I guess for everyone, so Cleverbot, it's been around for a long time, and as Austin said, it's mainly just kind of a simple like decision tree thing, and I think it uses past responses from people. And so I remember as a kid playing around with it. Yeah, and it learns, quote unquote learns. And as a kid, I remember using it, and sometimes there were like some colorful words that would appear, or like some really strange things that would appear. And so it was like very unfiltered. And this is too, like, that being said, this is the early days of the internet, right? Where like you could see anything you wanted to.
Not super early. Yeah, but still,
not
like
earlier. Like it was like probably early-ish 2000s, I'd say. And so it was still kind of I don't know. I mean, maybe not the wild west, but it was still pretty open, and there was a lot that they could get away with. But anyway, like I think Cleverbot, even now, like when I pulled it up earlier, it had like a disclaimer. It was like, not everything you see is probably going to be like for kids or something. Like it just could be like basically anything. Oh yeah, there it is. What does it say?
So it says, please note, this learns from people. The things it says may seem inappropriate. Use with discretion and at your own risk.
Yeah,
and then
there you
parental
go.
advice. Visitors never talk to a human. It knows many topics. Use only with oversight.
Yep. There you
and
go.
then this looks kind of creepy. 18 plus. Come to this one. Well, we'll stay away from that today.
Yeah, we'll stay away from that one.
Let's try ChatGPT though. Let's see what happens when we do tell me a story. Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there was a beautiful princess named Aurora. Aurora had a long, flowing golden hair and bright blue eyes. She was kind, gentle, and loved by all who knew her. One day, Aurora was walking out in the forest near a castle, and she stumbled upon a hidden cottage. She knocked on the door, and an old woman answered. The woman invited Aurora inside, and Aurora happily accepted. And it keeps going, but like that's actually pretty good. Like this is like a fairy tale kind of story.
A complete story. I mean, it's still going. We've got like 5 or 6 paragraphs now. But like you said, it seems like a typical kind of fairy tale story.
Yeah,
and it's pretty like I'm kind of into this. It's kind of like an enthralling story.
I love how it always adds in, like, honestly, like it looks like she accidentally pricked her finger on a spinning wheel, and so then she got blood on it, and it made like the most beautiful fabric. But suddenly, I mean, so it's kind of weird, but it's a good story. I mean, it's followable.
It's a complete thought.
Yeah, let's try Cleverbot. Tell me, sir.
Once upon a time, there was a princess, and she fell in love with a prince. She thought he was amazing until he broke her heart. The end. That's what you get with Cleverbot.
That's actually not bad. That's not bad. It's been worse before on Cleverbot.
Yeah, like, I feel like back in the day, it would have been like, if we said tell me a story, it would have been like, once upon a time, lived happily ever after the end or something. It's like not even a complete thought.
One thing too with Cleverbot is I don't think it can't look back on anything it's said before. Like it's all like it just based on it like says like if I say like what was the name of the prince? Price. Let's do Prince. No, we weren't. You asked me to tell you a story.
Oh, so it's gotten better.
It has.
Someone else at the same time. Yeah.
See, if I go to ChatGPT and I ask, what was... Let's see, did they talk about a prince?
I think there was, yeah, Handsome Prince. Maybe what the prince's name was.
What was the name of the prince? Oh, it wasn't mentioned. Could you give him a name? Sure, we can give Prince a name. Let's call him Prince Charming. Can you give him something Slavic?
Give him a Slavic name. Give him... How about Prince Vladimir?
And it rewrites the story. What?
Wow.
I did this for a while where I kept tossing it. Like, I create a story about Kevin and Julia, and please pardon the formatting. It's kind of awful, but actually, let's just remove all formatting. Whoa. Anyway, so I said, write me a story in the style of a Greek epic, and it actually did. And then I just kept adding and adding and adding to it. Like, it just doesn't have to stop. But it was funny because it's the same pattern. Like, it would tell a story. It was like the perfect hero's journey every time. It was actually a little bit annoyingly repetitive, but it could totally make the start for a children's story.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing to take away about this right now is that it's a great starting place for things.
Yeah.
It builds off of things that have already been done. You know what I mean? And so, like,
exactly. It's not going to,
and
it might create things that are clever.
Innovative. Yeah. And I think, like, it's very cool. I think the reason why stuff like this seems so incredible is because we aren't used to it yet. You know what I mean? Like, I think the reason why generative art is so cool is because it's like most of us can't draw like that. You know what I mean? Most of us can't do that, and so it's just so impressive. But then there are people that can do it, and those people are the ones that like created the things that the AI pulls from. And then the ChatGPT is kind of the same way, right? It's like, well, not all of us can solve differential equations in calculus, but like there are people that knew how to do it, and so then they were able to do it, and then AI learns how to do it. And so it's just like, we're not to the point where it's going to replace what people do. It's learning from people, and it's still got a long way to go. It is scary to an extent, but it's not like we taught this to do this. You know what I mean? Just like how you might learn another language, like the computer has learned how to process natural language in order to make it sound like a person, but it's
exactly.
not a person.
Well, talking about some of the capabilities, I think this thing is really more of a tool. Like, I think we should classify this as a tool. We were talking before, like how that your friend of yours put some code in PHP through this. I wonder if ChatGPT could refactor code for us to make it in like Fortran. Like, I wonder if I could ask it something like let's put like a standard coding question in. Let's say write a function.
Say do FizzBuzz in JavaScript.
Yeah. Okay. So write a solution for FizzBuzz using JavaScript. And then let's refactor it into a few different languages. I had it actually do assembly once. It just gave me a general because assembly is not. It's different.
Yeah.
I love how it gives.
FizzBuzz.
Yeah.
It gives an explanation.
So let's say rewrite the code in Fortran. My gosh.
Wow. We should see if it can do, what is it? Holy C?
All right, let's do it. You know, one cool thing about Holy C, this is totally off the cuff, but in his operating system, in Tipple OS, did you know that the guy that made it, okay, that's a whole nother thing to talk about, but like, he actually set up so that you could it had a real-time, just-in-time compiler. So it could actually compile C on the fly. So you could work with it in the same way as like an interpreted language like JavaScript.
Oh,
like,
wow. That's impressive.
I know, I'm like, nothing else has ever done that. But yeah, let's see if it'll do it. Could you rewrite that? Is it holy-c or holy
I
C?
think it's holy C. Resolution for the physical.
Oh, this isn't
it's just
C.
in C.
Oh, well.
That's okay. We'll take it still.
I mean, this is not bad, though. This is pretty cool. Okay,
But
it's
I
not
mean,
bad.
it's very impressive. I mean, I am curious how it does for a very like esoteric problem. It's like
Yeah,
very specific to one library.
Like, or could
yeah.
you go to Code Wars and could you like just paste the prompt and would it work?
Yeah, let's try it.
I'm pulling it up right now. Yeah, let's just take one of these for now.
Sounds
I know
good.
this is not like super. This is going to be in JavaScript. So let's reset the thread. Let's see what language it. Let's see what language is this.
This is Python, it looks like. I believe this is Python. Yeah.
Let's ask it to redo it in JavaScript, and then we'll paste it into Code Wars and see if it works. This is kind of cheating, but oh wow, it's
Let's try it
gonna.
out.
It's giving us full
Oh, gives it
explanation.
Yeah, full. Wow.
I can't type today. I think I'm just trying to reach over my headphone cord. Here we go. But yeah, let's see. Okay, here's a JavaScript implementation of divisors function.
Here we go.
This is crazy. And for those of you that are listening in on Anchor, if you go check us out on Spotify, you can see the video along with this, or just go to our YouTube and you can see the video of this so you can follow along. Okay, that's pretty wild. So let's take the copy of the code here and let's paste it into... let's paste it in here. And let's test it. Holy crap, it passed.
Okay, and then does it pass all the tests?
It passes all the tests.
Wow.
This is so bad.
That's crazy.
I didn't even have to really even look at it. I didn't even look at the instructions. I just pasted them. And yet it figured it out for me. It did. This is all done in there. And, this is a simple problem, but I wouldn't be surprised if people are out there cheating with this all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because typically this type of thing, when you're solving some sort of code problem or algorithm problem, it's like use Google. You're encouraged, like use Google as much as you want.
Right.
I wonder if there will be the same level of acceptance for ChatGPT.
I don't know.
Yeah, use ChatGPT, whatever, because I mean it just does it for you. You know what I mean?
I mean, it would definitely solve the problem with copy pasta because you're probably getting better solutions that are more tailor made. But who's to say that this is really not bad in its own way? Because if you're putting together code that you don't even understand and there's not any other documentation out there to help you, it's kind of dangerous. Like this is
totally. But
you could break things without realizing that you're breaking things, and you wouldn't know how to fix it.
I think in a way though, this will. As long as you put in the effort to understand the code that it's spitting out, I think this will help a lot of learners out there because it makes you, like, say that you don't have clear instructions like it was given to us in Code Wars just now, but you have to put in the problem. You have to be able to articulate the problem in a way that a computer understands it.
Right.
And it spits out a usable solution, which I feel like is in itself a skill. To be able to articulate it and understand the problem enough and explain the problem, almost more so than being able to solve it. I feel like that's a skill. So that'll be interesting. But I think we saw too, like with it explaining what the code does, I think this is a great tool for documentation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think it'll help write a lot of documentation, maybe help write a lot of...
And I hadn't even thought about that until you just said that now. But yeah, like, you could have this following along your code saying, okay, yeah, here's the documentation. I mean, that'd be such a powerful tool because who has the time? Who really wants to take the time to do documentation, especially if you're a small team? I mean, that's...
It takes a lot.
It does.
It at least gives you a skeleton starting place, right, for writing documentation, where you can get a skeleton out quickly and then go out there and change certain parts of it, keep other parts, edit it.
Right. Yeah, well, there's definitely a lot to come with this. Thank you so much for jumping on today, man. It's been fun to go through and talk about ChatGPT and honestly to kind of guess where it's going to go next, what's going to do. Who knows, maybe one day we should maybe just like write a whole podcast episode for us one day. Just read the script.
Maybe. I think it'll be interesting to see in 5-6 years down the road, look back on this and see how we were wrong.
I can't wait.
Sure
I hope I am wrong. I can't wait
me too.
I wanted to surprise me. Like, this is fun. Well, anyway, thank you everybody for listening. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't. You can subscribe either on Anchor, Spotify, or YouTube. The more listeners we get, the more of an audience we can build, and also the more we get supported by these platforms. So make sure to go share it with your friends and get the word out. All right, thanks, Karen. We'll see you next time.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you.